China economically has been suffering the last couple of years, but is the tide about to turn? As we come into 2023, are there some opportunities out there for you to trade and invest in Chinese stocks? Well, it's not looking too bad. There's shoots of positivity coming from mainland China, and I'm going to look at 5 stocks that I think are pretty decent and worth further investigation, as well as looking at the main stock market, see what's been going on, and show you also where you can trade those stocks. So let's get into it. So let's start with the Chinese stock market. I've picked on the Shanghai Composite Index. It's one of their main stock markets, just to give us a perspective of what's been going on in the longer term. Now, got back to 2014 here, and as you can see on the left, the huge run up very quickly, just over a year and a half, and then we've seen this big down trend over, really starting back in 2015 all the way back down to around about early parts of 2019. That was a 50% fall in the price of the index, and then we've seen a bit of a recovery, gaining a little chunk of that back, and then more recently 21, 22, it hasn't been looking all that good, but we have seen support around just under the 3,000 mark in this index. So maybe this Fibonacci line 3100 is a key area for a potential recovery. Is that a double bottom that we see there? If it is, then we could expect maybe up to this 4,000 area, now the Fibonacci line, in the shorter term, and then it's got to push on up towards that 5,000, 5,200 area if it wants to get back to those highs. In terms of volume, it's not too bad actually, compared if we look back to the peak period back in 2015, and then the fall off, it went really quiet, but actually the trend's been picking up and more volume coming back in. In terms of indicators, at the moment my longer term trend filter, well, it's still negative at the moment, and that white line you see running through the middle, that's the 200 moving average, and it's trading just below that at the moment, so we'd want to see it the other side of that as well for a bit more positivity. But you can see there is potential there to the upside. So with that, let's dig into those 5 stocks to look at. Now, first up is a company called Trip.com, and that might surprise a few of you who know who they are, but for those who don't, they are a one-stop travel platform, offering leisure, business travelers all sorts of experiences and services, bookings, all that sort of thing, all in their platform. Why is it maybe a oddball curveball choice? Well, it's all to do with the COVID Chinese government restrictions that could be, or we are starting to see them lift a bit. So if the Chinese population is allowed to travel around like it once did, then this could be a stock to watch. And if we look at the chart, we've got the weekly chart again for the longer term view. In terms of our signals at the bottom, well, the trend filter is bullish. We've got volatility picking up, as is volume, so all encouraging there. And then onto the price, we've got the Fibonacci levels. We can see the low in place there in April of this year, and then we've seen a bit of a recovery, but positively it's trading now above that 200 moving average, and I suppose its next target will be around this sort of 61.8% Fibonacci line, which is 43, where we've seen a lot of price action in the past. And then up above that, it's into the highs around 60, and Dreamworld, well, that would be around about 80. So that's the first choice, Trip.com. So second up, we've got a company called TAL Education, and as their name implies, they are engaged in providing after school tutoring programs, mostly for primary secondary school students in mainland China and Hong Kong. Now, as you can see from the stock price chart, we've gone back a long way again. See that huge lovely run up, but have a look at the fall in price around that sort of period starting March of 21. See the huge collapse in the price, and then we've got this slow sort of recovery, and things are starting to look up. It's trading way under its 200 moving average, but our trend filter started to turn bullish. Volume and volatility starting to pick up as well. And if we lay on some Fibonacci lines, then the first stop really is around this 22 sort of area. Then we'll be looking at the key Fibonacci numbers around 36 and then 57, and the dream scenario is, well, it gets back to its highs once more around the early 90s. So that's TAL Education. Now our third choice is another education company called New Oriental Education and Tech Group. So you can start to see a bit of a theme here of what I've been looking at and picking. And what are these guys involved with? Well, mainland China mostly. Again, they deliver educational programs, services, products to students through its got a nationwide network of schools and learning centres and bookstores. It has its own online platform, so maybe a bit more of a techie based educational play, this one. As you can see, very similar looking chart to old TAL that we just looked at. Similar fall, 96%. But again, if we look at the recent activity, it has been an encouraging second half of 22, and the price has started to move on up. So let's put on those Fibonacci's again. And targets, well, it's the first Fibonacci line around the mid 50s, then picking out those key Fibonacci lines, 81.5, then interestingly 126. But then if we look over, we can see where the real decrease, the momentum of that decrease kicked in was around about that zone. So that's an important level, and there's a lot of price action historically there. So we could see that price nicely get up to there before it hits, maybe a roadblock. But, dream world here, it's back to 200 and those highs. Now for something slightly different, we've got a company called VIPshop Holdings. Who are they? Well, they're an online discount retailer for all sorts of brands in China. They cover all sorts of products, fashion, cosmetics, lifestyle, men's, women's clothing, children's clothing, loads of different brands, healthcare products, food, consumer products. So an interesting sort of internet retailing type company, and as things pick up maybe in the mainland, then it could be one to watch. And if we head into the longer term chart, we can see the price approaching the 200 moving average. We got our trend filter signal turning bullish. Volatility's okay, nothing spectacular there yet, maybe could do with a bit more impetus. And in terms of volume, well, since that decline, it's flattened out, but we would want a bit more pick up there. And actually the fall from those highs around 46 to the lows, 88%, so quite a bit of a fall. But that means it's also got quite a bit of the upside for us if we want to get long that stock. So let's look at the Fibonacci's. So for me, it's sort of hitting an interesting spot. We got the moving average on this Fibonacci line here around about the 15 mark, and we've got a lot of price action historically over there in the past. So it may take some time to get through this area, but if it can, then we've got the 38.2% Fibonacci line at 21, and then at 30 for the 61.8% Fibonacci line. And then dream scenario is we would like to see it pushing back towards those highs, 46.50 sort of area. And finally, selection number 5, Pinduoduo. It's another internet retailing offering, e-commerce platform operator in China, mobile e-commerce platform providing value for monies or merchandise, interactive shopping options and experience. It sort of resembles a virtual bazaar of a broad spectrum of products, all sorts of options, purchase options, and it's covering apparel, shoes, bags, childcare, food, beverage, fresh produce, electronic appliances, furniture, cosmetics, sports goods. It's got the lot really in there. It's also got some interesting payment online options for people using their services. So heading into the chart, what can we see? Well, the filter again has turned green on the trend, so that's bullish. Volatility picking up, volume lagging a little bit. Want to see a bit more action there to the upside. Price trading above the 200 moving average, so that's encouraging. And we'll put on the price fall from that high in March of 21, down nearly 89%, but as we can see quite clearly, a nice recovery really since then. So let's put on the Fibonacci's. So what could we be looking at for targets? Again, it could be a congestion area around this 95-100, as we can see the Fibonacci line hitting there with a lot of noise historically. But then after that, 61.8% line at 140. Then the high is 213, and dream scenario for this stock, the next Fibonacci line around about 290, just under 300. So that's the 5 stocks to look out for next year. Love to hear your thoughts on what you think are the good stocks to play in terms of China. But if you do want to trade these stocks, how can you? Well, all the ones I've looked at today are ADRs. That means they're available on all the US stock markets, and that means because of that, they're easy to pick up within your stockbroker, your broker account, or if you're trading CFDs or spread bets, or, futures options around the world, then they should be there available for you. Now I'm just going to quickly show you, if you are into the CFD and for that matter the stock world, where you can get your hands on them. So for this example, I've headed into my eToro trading account, and as you can see, here's our short list of 5 stocks. They're all available, and if you notice, if you click on one of them in there and you want to invest in it, obviously it gives you a lot of information about what's going on, analysis, charts, stats. If we want to invest, you can actually see you can change the leverage, but if you leave it at 1, you're buying the underlying stock. So you can play the CFD world, with different leverage, or you can actually invest in and own the underlying stock. So that's just one example. eToro, I'll put the link in the description below if you're interested in checking them out, but they've got a lot more stocks, global stocks available if you are interested. So don't discount a Chinese recovery in 23. Some ideas for you there. Let me know in the comments below what you think is going to happen to China next year and what's going to happen to those stocks. Or do you have any other Chinese stocks we could have a look at and analyze? Let me know, like I say, in those comments below. Love to hear from you.